All right. R2's dome. Starting with the too much information. Still recovering from eye surgery. I'm not supposed to lift anything heavy. Not supposed to do anything to exert myself. Take it easy. So yeah, I haven't done hardly anything since my last video. One thing that I did today is put all the panels in. Trying not to exert myself. Starting a couple weeks ago, I started working on the radar eye, which I had painted blue, but that was it. So the first thing I did was to do the silver. And again, like all things R2D2, there's different ways to do that from different movies. Some of them, this part here was metallic, and yeah, so I just did what I liked. I'm now thinking of this as my R2 unit, not the R2D2, but my own R2 unit. So yeah, it can be whatever in the heck I want. So this is what I chose. So that was the first thing I did, which got my eyes all blurry. But it came out really nice. This was all done with masking it with Tamiya masking tape and then using a brush. I spray painted the bright coat metallic onto a piece of junk mail and then used a small brush and brushed it all and then took off the masking. Came out pretty good, I think. The next thing I did was, and this is the kind of trippy part, the inside of the eye here. You can see it's bright metallic. I basically covered this whole thing with the 3M blue painter's tape. And where it went over the opening to the eye, I ran my thumb around it, pressing pretty hard, trying to get it definitely stuck and a little recessed if possible. And all the blue was covered because I was paranoid about getting silver on the blue. And then I turned it over and I masked most of it off again. That's why there's only a little bit of silver showing here. And put on a latex glove, held it like this. And then with my other hand, just did light strokes around that ring. And then when I was done, I took off the painter's tape and it came out really nice. It's right up to the edge there, but it doesn't go over. Then I took a Michaels, 4-inch hollow Christmas decoration that I've had since last year. A bunch of them, a little package of like, is there 4 in there? 4? I think there's 4 of them. I used one on my other R2D2 and I just followed the same procedure on this one. I basically cut it in half because there's a mold line, because they do it, I guess, in 2 halves and mold them together. Or actually, it's probably a mold that goes together and they blow the plastic in. Whatever. I cut one of the Christmas balls in half, and then I found the best side because they're, cheap things, and sometimes they have little blemishes in them and scuffs from being in the package of 4 of them where they're bouncing together and against the plastic packaging. So I got a nice side that didn't have any blemishes on it, and then put the half that I cut, which came up to about here, and then just used a Sharpie to draw a little bit above the height that it needed to be cut, and then used a good pair of scissors to cut it close. And then I just spent a bunch of time with a Dremel. Well, first I hot glued, and I pushed the hot glue with a little screwdriver to make sure that it was in between the plastic ornament and the back. And then I went with a Dremel and I removed as much of the plastic, because it was still a little bit too tall, as much of the plastic and hot glue as I dared, making sure that it's still adhering really nicely. It's not going to pop out. I think the Mark IV version, there's actually a recessed lip, which gives you a place for your glue to go, whereas this one is flush. So even though it's flush, when bolted in place, it should be flush on the dome. My other one is. If this one's not, then I might have to Dremel a little bit more in any areas that are a little bit, like there's one right here that might be a tiny bit too high, but I pushed it up against the dome and it seemed like it was going to work fine. But I haven't bolted it to the dome. Again, I painted the inside of this just like the one on my other dome with satin black because that's all I had. But because you're spray painting the back of a transparent piece of plastic, it looks like it's gloss because you're actually seeing the finish of the plastic ball with just the paint color behind it. An odd thing that I didn't realize that you can probably see here is this weird effect where the metallic silver, you can kind of see the bright color there, reflects the black from the eye, making it almost a gunmetal color, which is kind of cool. And then if you look at it direct on, it almost looks like an iris and a pupil, like a black pupil and then kind of a gunmetalish iris as it's reflecting the silver onto the transparent ball. Like right there, there's a really good shot, which I don't know if it looks like that in the movies. I've never actually looked close enough, and I've never seen an actual screen used eyepiece, but it's a really cool effect, so I'm digging that. So I went with the dome and I kind of lined it up where I thought it should be. And then I melted 3 holes in the dome, and then I had this taped to the back and went through the holes again with just a pair of pliers holding a piece of copper wire that I heated up with a butane torch and melted starter holes for 3 bolts, 2 on the bottom and 1 on top, that just happened to go into this eyepiece's, the area where there's epoxy. This was a 2-piece eye. I'm not sure if I had done a video on that. On Thingiverse, you can see the line here. This piece is separate from this piece to make it easier to paint. I'm not sure that it actually did make it easier for me to paint, but in the end, actually it's a 3-piece, I'm sorry. This part is 2 pieces, so it's got a flat seam that you can't see because I tried to make sure I sanded it good enough you can't see, so that the back half paints like this on the print bed. So it's a flat piece on the print bed, and then it prints this, and then the eye front piece again prints like this, so that there's a flat piece on the print bed, and then it prints up for this staggered rounded area. And then you glue those 2 pieces together and you glue the side piece on. Again, I'm not sure. I didn't actually do any finishing to the first eye I made. That was just the normal Michael Baddeley 1-piece eye. So I don't know if it would have been harder, less time or anything, doing it this way, the 3-piece version as opposed to a 1-piece version. But this one turned out really nice. There's just one kind of area, if the light hits it just perfectly right where it's reflecting there, and I can't even see it in the camera, but there's some vertical lines, a little bit of stair stepping right there that basically you can't see unless the light is perfect and you're right up on it. Otherwise, it did come out pretty good. I could have, of course, everything, would look better if I spent more time. The gap right there between this piece and the main piece, I could have filled that a little bit better before gluing the parts together, but again, no one's going to see that unless they're right up on it. So I did that. That took, I think that was 2 days. I think the first thing I did was the big stripe. And then I did this small stripe and this small stripe another day. Oh yeah, and then the ring was another day, and the iris was another day. So yeah, I was just kind of working on this because it's not heavy, and it was still freaking my eye out trying to do detail work. But then I went on to today. Didn't do much until today, where I did these silver lines. And again, I just used Tamiya masking tape, top and bottom, and then sprayed the bright coat metallic onto a piece of junk mail, and used a really fine brush and just brushed it in by hand, and then removed the masking tape. And then about an hour later, I did the same thing to get this vertical line. Looking at it at an angle, there's little bits on the bottom that are a little bit sketchy, but again, this far away and you're not going to see anything wrong. Of course, the lighting here is absolutely horrible, but so after I did that, I decided, you know what, this thing doesn't weigh all that much. I think I want to start putting the panels in. And that's what I just finished doing. I started over here with panel number 1. Went around. This one is actually 2 pieces, hot glued together. All these panels are hot glued in, so if I need to take them out, they're not like super glued in. The center piece here is super glued to the blue frame, and then hot glued in place. I had put those 2 together before the eye surgery. That panel was already complete. Then we've got this panel, which I chose metallics. It's blue in some movies, and it's metallic in others. I went with metallic. This is another one. I had this piece ready, did a little bit of super glue, holding the blue piece to the metallic piece, and then I put it in. I put a little hot glue on the bottom, and then I found it wasn't fitting very well, and that's because the opening for this panel on this version 2 dome has these like triangular kind of, I guess you can call them supports, and the hot glue I used to bond these 2 pieces together was hitting that, and so the top corners were raised. So once I figured that out, I carefully sawed the triangles out, so now it's just up and over, just like this on both sides, and then the piece fit right in there nice and flush. I test fitted that the PSI that goes in here fits, so I don't have to shave any of the paint or sand it. It's a good fit. These 2 buttons, I think I talked about them in another video. Looking at research photos, I believe they're supposed to be black. Some people do blue. I painted mine in black, and I slightly modified the file so they're not sticking out as far. And also they were so big they barely were fitting in the hole, so I made them a little bit smaller in diameter, and I cut quite a bit off the back so that they fit in and they're maybe flush, maybe a little recessed instead of sticking out. And then I painted them again with satin black and then a gloss clear coat on top of that. And I didn't want to hot glue those in. I thought I'd epoxy those in, so that's why those aren't there. The red is the color of the piece of plastic that's used in that spot. Then we go over here to hollow projectors. Hollow projectors are something that I have not done yet. Sort of. I have 2 shrouds. I have one for the pie panel that has been painted the proper, well, the color I have chosen, which is blue. So if you look up here, the missing, God, it's hard to see with no light, because the black is, the blue is really dark with no light bouncing off it. This one gets the hollow projector in the middle. So I have the piece painted, I have the hollow projector shroud painted, but and I've printed the Tim Ebel hollow projector frames, but I'm going to have to trim the frames because they don't quite fit in the pie panel and let the pie panel sit on this, so I have to figure that out. And I haven't done any sanding or painting on the actual hollow projector unit. This one here, I have a shroud. I don't even have a shroud for this one printed, but I do have a hollow projector. Well, that's a lie. I have a shroud that's in my other dome, but I don't think it's the Tim Ebel one. I think it's the Michael Baddeley one. I'll have to double check that. But I might have to print a shroud for that. I've got the logic frame to go in here, but I'm worried that it's not going to work because the one that I chose to print might not leave enough room for the electronics of the hollow projector with servos. It might, the chip that controls the LEDs in this logic light, if it's on this side, which is where I had it in my other dome, it might interfere with the hollow projector frame assembly, so I'm not sure, so that's why I haven't put that surround frame in. And then we have just a regular blue panel, and then we've got these, and again, I'm using a different logic light frame. It's not the Michael Baddeley one, it's a different one, and it's pretty flush with the opening. The opening is curved, the blue piece is curved, like the dome is curved, but these surrounds are not curved, they're flat. So you might be able to see a tiny bit of shadow on this one. So it's flush on the sides, but it sticks in a tiny bit on the top and bottom. But I just decided I like that look better than ones that stick further out. So that's what I went with, and I know I had my other dome set up with the same ones, and they worked fine. So these should work just fine, and I kind of like the look of them. So I don't know if you can tell what I'm talking about them being flush, but there you go. And then we go back to another PSI light. Again, I checked, and my PSI lights fit in here. I don't have to scrape away any paint. It's one thing that I tried to make sure I did, because the PSIs actually don't come out flush, and they don't stick further out than this opening. So you will see some of the blue because they sit recessed in this hole just a little bit, and the one on the other side. So yeah, it looks like it's fitting just fine, so that's good. And then I have a shroud printed for this one, but it's not been painted, and the weather is now absolutely horrible, raining all the time, and it's in the temperatures, 40s to 60s. So it's one of those things where working on these, if I'm going to do them, which I probably am, it's going to be just like doing Bondo in the garage and having a little heater going on it to dry it so it's not too cold, and the same thing with painting it. What I did with which pieces were it that I painted? Oh, the shroud here. When I painted the inside of the eye, and when I did the silver spray paint in the rings and by hand, these pieces, I did the spray outside, and then I brought this in to dry into the house. And luckily this, the satin black isn't a very smelly paint. The bright metallic doesn't have an odor for that long. It's the clear coat that goes on the blues smells pretty pretty bad for quite a while, so I didn't have to paint any blue, so that was good. But yeah, painted it outside and then immediately brought it back inside so that it would dry properly. So that's about it for the dome. I just noticed this one pie panel, it's probably the last one I put in, isn't quite lined up right. So again, they're all hot glued. I'll probably end up popping that piece off and then making sure it's lined up and hot glue it back in place. The eye might be a little bit high. I'm not sure. Again, I didn't actually screw it on, but I was trying to get it level. It's so hard for me to judge. I don't know if I'm the only one, but because of the bottom of this thing, where it's, you know, two different levels, trying to figure out, and you're putting it up against this thing here, and you're like, is it level? Because it looks level at the bottom, but then it doesn't look level at the top, and so I'd be raising it up, trying to, you know, get it level, and then I'm like, oh, now I'm way too high, and I put it back down again. So it should be okay. Something I did on my first dome that I can do on this one also is I can open these holes up in a downward direction if I needed to, if I need to mount the eyepiece lower. And then just make sure when I'm bolting it in from the back, make sure it's level, and then tighten the bolts, and it shouldn't move around. The bolts should hold it in place. So these don't have to be perfectly lined up. You can enlarge them a bit if you need to move the eye up and down. Obviously, you don't want to move it up and down to the point where you're going to see the top of that hole. But if you look here, I've got quite a ways that I can go before those would have got, you know, up to the top. I'm not that far off. I might be an eighth of an inch or so. I think it's going to be absolutely fine, and I'm not really worried about it too much. I do have the top piece. I just did not put it on, just to make it easier to grab and move around, and also because I've been working on this all night and I need to stop because I've done a little bit more work than I should. I also do have the two rings. They're already painted, the dome rings. The one that I printed on my Voron looks like it came out a little bit taller than the first one I printed. So I'm going to have to raise it up a bit because it's literally just barely scraping on the body as it spins. There's like no gap at all, and there should be a little gap. So I think I might be able to just use one extra nut on the bolt that goes up through the dome rings to hold the dome on. I think one nut will probably raise it up just enough to get a proper gap. But other than that, I'm happy with my blue. I didn't go crazy and do polish on it. This is just Duplicolor Sonic Blue Pearl with Rust-Oleum Gloss Clear. No polishing compound, no 1000 grit sanding, just right out of the can, and I think it looks just fine for me. Everybody's going to see problems with their own stuff, but if I can get this to focus, one thing I noticed, I should have spent a little more time on these bits because this piece here, this upper framework, glues to the dome here, and still a little bit on the inside panel line where I didn't get it really smooth, and you can kind of just see in there that it's a little bit off. It should be flush, and there's a little imperfection in the same place on every single strut. Well, that one's pretty good, but yeah, just a little bit there where that piece joins. Other than that, yeah, really happy with how it went today. I did have some pieces that were a little bit big on the bottom there, and what I ended up doing was I took a hobby knife to the back and kind of just scraped, instead of using sandpaper, I just used a hobby knife and scraped at like a 45-degree angle on the back of the sides and the bottom, and just a little bit on the top, and that helped get some of the slight paint overspray off. And then some of the pieces, just the buildup of paint was a bit much, and so they were sticking out. And so doing that, I got pretty much all of them nice and flush. This one here, I think, just because of its size, and I think there's a join of two of the dome pie pieces somewhere in there, so it's a little bit not flush on the bottom, but again, that's like, I don't even care. It's it's next to nothing. And again, this isn't even supposed to be my permanent dome, but I think it turned out pretty well so far, knock on wood. Pretty good. One thing I did notice is the paint's a bit splotchy. If you look really close, and I don't even know if I'm going to be able to get it in here. Maybe there's a kind of an area here. Yeah, if you see against my shadow there, it's not quite as reflective. I use reflective just as a term. It's definitely not a mirror. It's not reflecting any detail, but you can see a little area there where the paint is a little misted, I guess, and that's just because I don't know how to paint something this huge. What I did was I started at the top and made sure I got all the struts in the top, and I had it on this Lazy Susan here, which was made to hold like a small TV, tube TV that you could rotate. That's how old it is. And then I just sprayed with one hand and then kind of rotated and sprayed. So I sprayed first the top with struts, and then not this whole area, but like half of this area or 2/3 of this area, and then I did the rest down to these panel lines, and then I did the panel lines and the bottom. And I could see on my first go round areas that I missed, and the paint wasn't perfectly even, so I did it again, started from the top, same thing, spun the thing, and just kind of went all the way around, worked there, and there, because I thought that would maybe be better than going all the way down and then spinning it, and then all the way down and then spinning it. So I don't know if the way I did it was the best or not. Also, the really hot weather was gone, and so just because, again, it's so big, I think what happened, there's a, yeah, is that same slight area? What happened is, as I'm spraying, and it's just a rattle can, it's like drying at the top, and then you're going over the bottom, and the spray can, as your main area gets some good coverage, but then because the spray comes out at an angle, what I'm trying to say is paint gets in the area that you did up here really well. It gets like a light mist coat or whatever, and it's not like all blending in perfectly. So I don't know, how, other than maybe how to get that to look better with using spray cans. But what I did was the third coat I put on heavier, thinking, okay, I'll put it on heavier so it will take a little bit longer to dry. So as I'm moving down, if I have a little overspray because it was heavy, it should like kind of melt into the, or combine with, however you want to put it, the heavier layer, and so it won't have as much of a light overspray effect. Like right here. And it worked pretty good, but yeah, if I look at it up close, there's another area right there, if you can see, just kind of see the difference in the reflection, my reflection, and up here. So yeah, it's not that bad, but again, in certain lights you're going to see it more than other lights. But I'm happy with it. The only other thing I was going to do was use the rub and buff. I decided not to do that because I had read there were some people, oh, they messed it up and they had to do it a couple times to get it right. And I'm like, what does doing it a couple times entail? How do you get the wax? It's a wax. How do you get the wax off your dome to do it again? Or do you just keep building up more coats of it? And I just decided, that's going to be a lot of work. I didn't think I would be able to get this ready for Halloween, which this is, well, it's 1 o'clock in the morning right now, so it is Thursday and Halloween is Friday. So I mean, we don't get that many trick-or-treaters, and this is in the living room, but you can kind of see it if you come to the door because it's in line with the door. So I thought, well, maybe I can take the whole table out of the way and put R2 in there and just have him with his lights and sounds going. But I can't move the table because I can't do anything that strenuous to put him near the door. But I did want to at least see if I could get the dome on, minus hollow projectors, and mainly get the panels that I did, get the eye on, and then nothing much I can do about the hollow projectors. I might be able to, the one that's in the front here, the shroud I printed in black plastic, so I could temporarily hot glue it there and then take the hollow projector out of my other dome and put it in there so it would at least have a hollow projector in there underneath the eye, even though it wouldn't be painted. But yeah, again, this video is now over half an hour, so I'll stop talking, but there we go. I am quite happy with this. This is so much better looking than the primered, multicolored dome that I currently was using. This is so much nicer. So again, I'll have to decide if this is going to be a permanent dome or if I'm going to do one with the opening and closing panels. I'd really like to do the opening and closing panels, but we'll see. I'm just really happy that I'm to this point. Now it's kind of a fiddly electronic stuff and making sure things fit without bumping into other things for the electronics inside, which is going to be a pain in the neck. And this is heavy to the point where I'm not sure if I should do that for another couple weeks anyway, messing around with the electronics. So we'll see, but yeah, I think this is a pretty darn good result for the amount of time I had, certainly. After I finished the body and thought, oh, maybe I can get a dome done. Yeah, sure, I'll just get a dome done. Won't take any time at all. Well, yeah, took a lot longer than I thought, but it came out way nicer than I thought too. So there we go. I'm stopping the video now because now I'm just repeating myself. That's it.